When I'm working with clients to support them in becoming financially free in 5 years or less, one of the ways we sometimes do that is to help them create new streams of passive income that don't require a lot of money or any money to get started. So in other words, instead of just buying assets by investing your money, you're creating assets by investing your time, energy, creativity, etc. And one example of an asset that you can create is a book. So I thought it would be fun to share a video here on my YouTube channel that's a little different than anything I've ever shared before. My friend and financial coaching client, Laura Joan Cornell, interviewed me for her Spiritual Woman Writers Salon about my experience with my first published book. What inspired me to write it in the first place, how I got it done and published, and how I've leveraged it as an asset in my own wealth building and financial freedom journey. So I'm going to share that interview with you now. And if you want to check out the full Writer's Salon, I'll link in the description. So tap the like button, enjoy this juicy conversation, and I'll see you on the other side.
And welcome to day 5 of the Spiritual Women Writers Summit. We're here today on day 5 talking about writing and business. Yeah, writing and business. And I'm here with my dear friend, Penelope Jane Smith of many years. Penelope and I were good friends when I lived in the Bay Area, and I miss you, Penelope, now that I'm here in Sedona. I do, I miss you. Yeah. So
We're gonna
I'm
have to
going
arrange some visits for
what'd you
sure.
say?
We're gonna have to arrange some visits for sure.
Yeah, welcome to come to Sedona, and you never know, we may make it back for a visit to the Bay Area. So I'm going to introduce you, and then we'll jump into our topic. So yeah, Penelope Jane Smith is the premier financial freedom mentor for entrepreneurs and the go-to expert for some of the biggest names in the conscious business industry. She's an acclaimed international speaker and a certified trainer with over 20 years of teaching experience. She's the author of the Little Book of Prosperity, which she has on the shelf behind you. Yes. So the Little Book of Prosperity is the book she's the author of, and she's the creator of Prosperity Coin, the world's first cryptocurrency designed to support financial freedom for women entrepreneurs. Her unique magic is to support entrepreneurs to become financially free in 5 years or less, with 10,000 plus per month in passive income. So they don't have to depend on their business, a job, a partner, the government, or anyone else for money. And I can say that I have studied in Penelope's financial freedom course and learned a lot from you that has really changed my money outlook here and financial freedom and prosperity. You have an incredible positive mindset, I would say, about pretty much everything you do, including financial wealth. And so I'm really excited to delve into your thoughts about writing
Yeah,
and how writing can support business and financial prosperity. So
totally. I'm so happy to be here.
yeah, so tell us what inspired you to write your book, The Little Book of Prosperity.
Well, in terms of writing in general, like from the time I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a writer. Like when people are like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I wanted to own a pet store and I wanted to be a writer. Like those were
Store, I didn't know
two
that.
my two dreams. I thought it would be the coolest thing in the world to have a pet store. I grew out of that one. I was like, you know what? I don't actually want to own a pet store, but I do want to be a writer. That dream stayed consistent. And in fact, when I was in second grade, I wrote my first book, which was a little story about a rainbow-colored dragon that lost his colors. And I drew it and illustrated it myself, and I got to go read it to the kindergartners. So that was a big crowning achievement of my second grade self.
The
For
second, so
sure.
you got to go and do a book reading
I got
with
to
the,
do a book
yeah,
reading.
you did a book reading when you were in second grade. That's a form of marketing. I love it. And sharing our
So much.
story.
Yeah, yeah. So that was really nice. Like, come to think of it, that the teachers, let me do that and encourage that in me. And so, yeah, I always wanted to be a writer. I remember I joined this writers group to learn how to write, and I would write like short stories and kind of work on these different like fiction and fantasy novels. I still have them. I still carry them with me and, work on them occasionally. So I had this idea that I wanted to be a writer. And then as I evolved into doing the business I do now, which is I run a 7-figure coaching and training company called Real Prosperity Inc., where we support people to get the financial education that they never got at home or in school growing up. And so I had done this like series of personal development trainings where I flew back and forth to Utah about every other week for a year.
Oh, wow.
And in that process, I got really clear that like what I felt like I was put on this earth to do was to support people in having breakthroughs around their money stuff and to experience more of a feeling of freedom around money, with freedom being one of my highest values. And so I've always, from that point, like from when I became aware of what financial freedom was, I was like, this is what I want for everyone. So I got clear that I wanted to do that. And I wanted to write books and create courses and speak on stages. And I didn't really know how to do any of that. So I decided to do a little workshop, a 90-minute workshop. I invited everyone I knew, charged $10 for this little workshop, and 9 people came. So 9 people times $10, I made $90. Best $90 I ever made, Laura. I was like, oh my God, I'm living my dream, right? I was so excited. And I didn't know where to go from there because I'd already like talked to every person I knew. And then I manifested a mentor in the seminar space and launched my speaking and training company. So launched that back in 2006. So almost 20 years ago. And I had already had some teaching experience before that. So I launched this new business around my purpose and my passion. And I still had this idea of wanting to write and wanting to create books. And as I learned more about the business side, it was less about like writing a fantasy novel just because I had a story I wanted to tell, and more about like, well, what do I want to teach people and how can this support my business? And so I had, ideas about wanting to write books. And then at a networking event, I ran into a lady who had her own publishing company, and she had a company called Our Little Books. And what they did was they published these cute little books like this. It's small.
It's very
a
small. Yeah.
And so everything was like the little book of abundance, the little book of prosperity, the little book of happiness, whatever. And so she already had this whole thing about little books. And I was like, ooh, I could write the little book of prosperity. Like, how cool would that be? And I can take like my top insights around building wealth and financial freedom and living in prosperity, and I can put them into this little book, and then I'll be an author and I'll be able to give this to people. And so it was like, I always wanted to be a writer. And then I wanted to write books for my business. And then it was meeting the publisher that gave me the idea that I could do this little book. And since then, I've actually been in like a few different anthologies. So this isn't the only book I'm in. And I'm actually planning my first like full-size book, my
Okay.
full-size book. So we could talk more about that if you want. But this is a great way. This is a great path to, becoming an author. And I'm happy to share how I've leveraged that in my business if you want.
Well, yeah. So given that you do courses and then the book, I mean, this is what people always say, you don't make a lot of money from a book. Now, we do have 1 or 2 people who actually did make really good from their money from their book in our salon, a couple of people. But on average, it's more of a calling card. So how does this little book of prosperity fit into your overall business model with your courses and trainings?
Yeah, it's fantastic. When I was a little girl thinking about writing books, I wasn't even really thinking about like how I would make money doing that. It was more just like it was what I wanted to do. But what I always thought, and what I think a lot of people think, is I'm going to get a deal with a publisher. They're going to sell my book and I'm going to make money on the royalties. Plus, I might get like an advance, right? That's kind of, I think when people think about monetizing their book, that's what they think of.
Yeah.
And as I learned more about business and marketing and business models, I was like, oh, that is not where the real money is. I mean, you can make money from royalties for sure, but you can make way more leveraging your book in different ways. So one thing I did was I turned it into a lead generation tool. And how I did that was at the back of the book, it says, hey, you can get this free report as a bonus for this book, and here's the link to go get it. Now I'll tell you, because I'm a marketing nerd, I made that a Infusionsoft tracking link. So I can see who comes, from the book specifically to that opt-in page. So now anybody that finds my book out in the world and decides to opt in for that gift, now they're on my email list. Now they're getting a whole 21-day sequence where I'm building relationship with them and seeing if they're interested in taking the next step with me, like maybe come into my Financial Freedom 101 event, right? So it's like
Right.
guiding people down that path where they might actually attend my event or become a client or something like that. So that was one thing, is using it as a lead generation tool. The other thing is using it as a credibility indicator, which I'm sure, you're familiar with and you probably
Yeah.
talked about with other speakers. But when you have a book, when you're a published author, like that's just cool. you
Yeah.
know, like it just saying you're an author, people are like, "Hmm?" Like that's
Their
awesome.
ears stand up.
Yeah, when you're a published author, you have a book, like it lends credibility, and it also helps get speaking engagements because some people don't want to have you on their stage unless you're published, unless you have a book. And so leveraging it into speaking gigs where I can either sell from stage or offer something for free and then like convert people later, that's been extremely lucrative as well. So the other thing too, and this is kind of like related to the lead generator, but I love using the book as gifts. So for example, when somebody would sign up for my event, um, they would get 5 copies of the book, one for them and then 4 to give out to friends, right?
Okay.
And so that's going out and like putting the book in the world where people can then opt in and come learn, come work with me if they want to. I also sent enough for like I called Infusionsoft, which is now Keep. It's the
Right.
customer relationship
The
software I
email
use.
system. Hmm.
Yeah, and I said, like, how many people do you have working there at the office? And it was, I don't know, like a few hundred people. And so I sent them a big care package where every single person got a copy of my book and a piece of chocolate, and then when I went to visit the Infusionsoft like main offices, they have this library and like there's my book in the library for
That's
everybody to
brilliant.
and they can like take a copy if they want. We also did a campaign where one of my JV partners, they sent out my book to their clients as a Christmas gift. So they took, their top, I don't know, few hundred clients. And I actually did it, but it was a way to get my message in front of their clients in a way that made them look really good. So I created this beautiful branded uh, greeting from them saying, "Hey, here's a gift for you. We hope you like it." And then it had my book. And so it's another way of introducing people to me. So it also created another fun way to joint venture with people because it makes them look good because they're giving their clients a unexpected gift. It introduces me to new people, and then, the people that receive it get that financial education.
I love that. So I'm just tracking here. You've named kind of 4 really
Mhm.
good ways that you've leveraged it in your business. One is gifts that you give, and I love that, sending a whole one to everyone at Infusionsoft before you went there, almost like a warm-up gift. And
Yeah.
then JV gifts, where your JV partners give it to their clients, as a credibility tool. And I would agree that it does make it much easier to get speaking and podcast gigs once you have a book.
Yeah.
I want to ask you just a little bit to follow up about your lead generation tool. And just to be sure that everybody's following, I think a lot of people may know about this, but just in case they don't, I want to slow this piece down. I think what you mean there is that at the end of the book, you're putting a come here and get more information. So given
Yeah.
that your book is the Little Book of Prosperity, what is the lead generation link? Like, what are you giving people when
So
they go?
this is a little bit out of date because I did this a while ago. So this isn't my favorite thing to give people, but it's in print, so it's still here. So the very back it says, "Thank you for reading the Little Book of Prosperity. I have a gift for you. The top 5 keys to financial success." This report is based on 9 years of intense research and study with some of the most brilliant teachers and business owners in the world. I've condensed that knowledge to the 5 most essential keys to making more money with less stress. Get your copy here, littlebookfreegift.com. So you don't have to do it at the back of the book. You could do it in the
You do it at the
front.
front.
You know, you could have multiple calls to action throughout the book. This is
Yeah.
just how I did it. And when people go to littlebookfreegift.com, I bought that URL. I bought it on GoDaddy.com. Other people prefer other sources of domain names. Apparently, they've had problems with GoDaddy. I never have. So I bought that and then I had it. I did what's called a redirect, where that domain name will go to that tracking link I mentioned. So when people go to littlebookfreegift.com, it goes to that tracking link. And then there's a very simple web page that's just like, here's your report. And they can put in their first name and email to get the report, and they click the button. And what happens is then when they put their name and email on that page, their name and email goes into my software
Mhm.
to where they now get my biweekly newsletter and other communications from me so that we can hopefully, build the relationship and maybe become referral partners or clients or so many things can happen from there, right? But that's how I take them from grabbing this book on somebody's library or coffee table or getting in the mail to actually coming onto my email list where I can communicate with them and add value to the
Beautiful.
relationship.
I want to talk to you about little books.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that your book is little and short. Um, I remember when I was writing my first book, my writing coach talked about how books are getting shorter. And the average book used to be like 80 to 120,000 words.
Hmm.
And now the average book is more like 12 to 24. And,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that's true for all books, but books are getting shorter and shorter. Your little book, I'm guessing it was easier to write because it is quite short versus a full length manuscript that would be more like 40,000 words, let's say. What do you see for you? I'm guessing it's also less cost to print if you're going to give it as gifts. What do you see
Yeah.
as the pluses and minuses of little books versus longer books? And why are you now thinking of writing a longer book?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So the little book, I mean, it came because the opportunity presented itself to me. I'm like, oh, a little book. I could do that, right? So I didn't like think, oh, you know what I should do? I should do a shorter book because that would be easier. It was more like the opportunity manifested,
You
and I
were
was like, what a
responding to what the universe was giving
yeah,
you and
yeah.
saying yes.
What a great
Mhm.
idea. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe I could take some of my favorite like insights and tools, inner and outer game things around creating wealth, and I could have maybe just like one little page or one little section per thing, and then people can flip to anywhere in the book and just read that one thing and get a little dose of prosperity. So I thought that this could be a really fun thing to have like in your bathroom or on your coffee table and be like, what do I want to do today? Oh, how to stop worrying about money. Okay, let me just read that. Okay, cool. Got it. And so that was kind of my vision for how people would use it. And I think having a little book is also less intimidating to read.
Yeah, I read the whole thing last night.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's an easy read. And I've
It
had
is.
people one of my friends is like, I just keep it, and I pick it up now and then and just read a little thing. And I always feel better reading it. And just having that kind of little prosperity touchstone, is nice. And so I think the advantages of the little book is yes, it's easier to write because I mean, probably faster to write because it's less text, cheaper to produce if you're going to be sending it out, but also probably more readable, probably more likely that people are going to pick it up, open it, read the whole thing because it doesn't feel like as big a time commitment. I actually have, a whole bunch of books that I've started reading on my
Right.
Kindle physically. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I just get put this down, and then
Right.
I might never pick it back up again.
Right.
Um, so there's something to be said for being able to get that serotonin rush of like, I read the whole book in one night. Don't you feel great that you read the whole thing, Laura?
I do.
And
And
then
now I can go back to pieces if I want to. Did you face any challenges? I know you are a master at busting through challenges and transforming your mindset when you face blocks. Was there anything that was hard about the writing and publishing process?
you would think it would be pretty easy because it's a little book, right? But I'd say the biggest challenges for me, one is like, okay, this is going to be in print. So I got to get it right.
Okay.
I don't want to
Yes.
be embarrassed about something that I put out there. I don't know if that's possible to avoid, because we're always growing and evolving as human beings. And so like what you wrote 10 years ago might be like, okay, well, yeah, that's not how I would say that now, or I don't know if I believe that now that I've had this experience or whatever. So I don't know that that's avoidable. The other thing for me, and this is a little embarrassing, is even though I love writing, even though I've always wanted to be a writer ever since I was a kid, the hardest thing for me in my life and business is sitting down and writing content. whether
Really?
it's content for a book, whether it's a script for a video, whether it's writing the outline for a training, whether it's writing a new article for my newsletter, whether it's writing a post to put on Facebook. Like it is the hardest thing to carve out time and like get in that zone and do it. And it's not that I don't like it. I love it. I love being in that zone. But there's I heard somebody talk about like the creator schedule versus the maker schedule.
Yeah.
So like when you're just like getting it done and grinding it out, I can do stuff in like 20-minute chunks here and there. When I'm like writing, when I'm in that creative mode, it takes me a while to sink in, you know? And so I need like spaciousness in my schedule, and I don't always have that.
You're a busy
Uh,
mom and you have a
so
business.
yeah, so it's just the hardest thing. And so I have to either like do a power day like I did with you, you know,
Mhm.
where we're like, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna work on our project.
Yeah.
Or I do like a VIP day with myself, or you know, those are kind of some of the hacks to get myself to do it.
Okay.
Um, so this is the embarrassing part. It took me like a year to write that book, which
Really?
was 11 months of procrastinating and 1 week of locking myself in my aunt's apartment and doing it.
Oh, wow. Well, procrastination is a real thing. Once you've told people you're going to do it, everything else can get in the way.
Yeah, it would, and I think part of it too is like when I'm writing any of those things, I'm kind of like writing it in my head and heart first.
Yeah.
And then it's by the time I can get in that zone where it's coming out onto the keyboard, because I like to type on the keyboard, um, by then it's kind of like 90% created. So there is something about having it kind of percolate in my system before I sit down
Uh-huh.
that I think is valid. So
Yeah.
I don't know that I could say it's just procrastination, but definitely some resistance. Whereas when I created that sacred space for myself, where the only thing I was doing was sitting in that apartment and writing, and it's like outside of my normal routine where all these things can pull on me and distract me.
So
Um,
what
and
shifted
I
that
could,
got you to take that week of isolation? Was it an outside deadline or was it you just had enough of not writing it? What shifted?
I think it was mostly like I just had enough of not writing it. I was like,
Okay.
hey, come on. Like
You're like,
something's
come
got to
on, I've been telling
give.
people.
Yeah, I need to like give myself a writer's retreat. And so I think that like getting out of your regular space, I mean, some people have like a dedicated space where they write, you know, and they get into that space and it helps them get in the zone. And I could definitely see value there. Other people, you know, it helps to go on a retreat. That's more
I
me.
love going on writing retreats. I do.
Either going somewhere else
Mhm.
where I can't check the fridge because there's no fridge. That's like one of my things, like, oh yeah, it's lunchtime, you know.
Snack time.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so having a retreat or having a partner to be like working on stuff with, having that space in the schedule where that time is carved out and it's not just like an hour, it's like at least 3 hours, hopefully a whole day. That really helps me.
I really
Yeah.
believe in that, and I love retreats as well. I love retreats. So that's fun. I didn't know this story of how you had an 11-month intention and finally got yourself to do it. I think that's great. I want to ask a different question, and this is about, well, it's about collaboration. And
Mhm.
I see you also as a master of collaboration and supporting other people. You came to my book launch for Moon Salutations.
Yeah.
And you came to
Yeah.
this book launch in person in Walnut Creek, California, at my co-housing where I was living at the
And
time
I
when the book came out.
brought my kiddo. Yeah.
Yeah, and your baby at the time. Um, what do you think about book launches? Why do they matter? Launch parties, showing up for other people. What does that mean to you, and how does that fit into your whole way of being or your mindset around prosperity?
Well, you having written books, you know what a process it is. There is like this gestation process, like this birthing process, you know? So putting a book out into the world is a big deal. Like I'm getting chills. Even a little book, it's a big deal. You know, you're like putting yourself out there in a way that like people can see you and judge you like never before. It's also just like the time and intention of like, what do I want to say and how do I want to say it? And like going through the process of writing and editing and all of that. Like it's a big deal. So I honor book launches the way I honor baby showers. Like it's this is a big life event, like
If you
let's
can
call
show up,
it.
you're going to be there.
Yeah, so if I can go to somebody's book launch, if I can buy their book, if I can share their book, like I'll do whatever I can to support that because it is a big deal in that person's life. And part of my kind of like manifesto of how I want to live my life is showing up for people's important life moments, like birthdays, holidays, book launches, baby showers, weddings. Like I really do everything I possibly can to make those sacred and show up for them as best I can, right? Like maybe timing doesn't work or maybe they're in another part of the world, but whatever I can do, like I want to be there and I want to honor it and I want to celebrate it because those are the things people remember. Like it matters to me who was at my wedding, that like people came and they were there to witness that.
Yeah.
It matters to me who endorsed my book or bought my book or shared my book. Like, so I want to be that and do that for other people as well.
That
Yeah.
sounds like a value. I mean, you talked about freedom being one of your biggest values,
Yeah.
and I think this would be a value of being all in, not just
Yeah.
for yourself, but for other people with their really important dates. So I have another question that's kind of in my mind. I haven't asked any of the other speakers, but I'm going to be brave and ask you.
Okay.
You mentioned, and you have no idea that I'm planning on asking. I wasn't planning. I was just coming to me while we're talking. You mentioned feeling like copy is hard and, having to give yourself sacred space.
Yeah.
With the advent of AI,
Mm-hmm.
how has that affected your writing? How has it influenced your writing? And this does go to value because I know some people feel that AI is cheating. Some
Mm.
people feel that AI is their best editing buddy. Um, where do you kind of fall? How has AI supported you or not supporting you? How would you plan on using it for your longer book, if at
Yeah.
all?
I don't think AI is any replacement for your thought leadership. If you have a unique story to bring to the world, if you have a unique idea to bring to the world, AI is not going to be able to do that for you because you're birthing something that doesn't exist yet, right?
Mhm.
So in terms of like your own story, your own creativity, your own thought leadership, like that's you. You
Right.
know?
No,
Um,
AI can't copy that.
I haven't I haven't really gone that far down the rabbit hole with AI because I'm like, I'm not interested in plagiarizing other people's art. I'm not interested in plagiarizing other people's stuff. Um, I do occasionally use it as like a first draft assistant if I'm feeling stuck on like how I want to phrase something. So like when we did our prosperity adventure to Spain last year and I was writing the invitation letter, I was like, what do I want to say right here? And so I put into ChatGPT like say something about this, language it for me. And one little phrase that it came up with I liked was something about while experiencing the beauty and culture of Spain. And there was something I liked about that beauty and culture. I was like, oh, beauty and culture. Like that word didn't come out of me, but like when I saw it, I was like, great. And I think like of the whole thing, that was like those three words, that was what AI contributed, but it got me unstuck
Okay.
at that point in the process. So it's more there as like a brainstorming assistant.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in having ChatGPT write my posts or my articles or anything like that, even if it's in my voice,
Yeah.
because it's not coming from me. So that's where I'm at with it,
Yeah.
you know, for whatever that's worth, you
No,
asked.
I agree. When I sometimes I have enjoyed working with it as an editor sometimes to get things into a final state, and I will take maybe some of the edits that it suggests. Um, but I agree, it can't come up with your original thought.
Yeah.
That has to be from you, from your lived experience and your own creativity. Well, are there any final words of wisdom you want to leave with us? Is there anything you want to talk about writing a business that we haven't gotten to?
Yeah. Okay. So this is what occurs to me say that's just like coming in as you're saying that. And that is that this idea that if you feel called to write a book, there is somebody that is calling you to write that book. So just like if a phone is ringing here, it's because somebody's dialing on the other end.
Yeah.
And if you don't write that book, that person is not getting that thing they need the way they need it.
Mm.
So trust that if you have the desire to write a book, it's because someone is meant to read it. Someone needs it. Like I believe we all have our own healers and teachers and mentors that give us what we need the way we need it, the way nobody else can, you know? And so for me, like I can go to 8 different chiropractors, but then there's this one where it's like, oh, like just I feel like a different person. Whereas the others, it's like, okay, I think that helped, you know? Or,
Mhm.
you know, if somebody's like loves Tony Robbins, and I'm like, okay, I have so much respect for him, but I just don't think he's my main person versus like my own mentors. I'm like, oh my God, like every article they put out, every video they put out, just like give it to me, give it to me. You know, I love it. And so if you've had that experience of like that particular massage therapist or that particular teacher or that particular writer, you are that for somebody. You are that for somebody. So I think sometimes it's hard to get yourself to write just for yourself. And if that's the case, like write for those people who are calling you to write the book.
I love that. If you're receiving the call, it's because there's somebody calling on the other end, like a telephone, somebody who wants to receive what you have. That's beautiful. And so under this video is going to be the link where people can go and download your little book of prosperity. Thank you for gifting that to everybody here at our event, our Spiritual Women Writers Salon. And thank you for being here and talking about your wisdom about writing and publishing in the business building and financial prosperity.
Thank you, Laura. Good stuff.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I'd love to know what this conversation sparked in you. Have you written a book? Feel free to post the link to your book in the comments so we can check it out. Do you feel called to write a book? Let me know in the comments so we can cheer you on. And if you want access to the rest of the Spiritual Woman Writer Salon interviews, check the link in the description. Thanks for watching.